Welcome to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast where I get to connect with amazing women doing amazing things. And as I've been joking about, a time where I get to catch up with my friends because we're all so freaking busy being moms and being women who work that we don't get time. So it's my excuse today that I get to connect with my good friend Marcie. Marcie, thanks for coming. Why don't you tell everyone who you are and the amazing things you do?
Thank you, Christina. So my name is Marcie Hawranik, and my pronouns are she and her. And who am I? I come from Manitoba. That's where I grew up, or Treaty 1 territory. I grew up on a Saskatoon farm, ended up studying poli-sci and international relations and working in that field for a long time, human rights field. Met my partner, who's my now husband, while I was doing that. Lived internationally for a while, did my master's in conflict resolution in upstate New York. And anyway, moved around a lot, eventually settled in Alberta. And after 12 or 13 years in government, left and started a couple businesses. So I have, and alongside that, had two kids. So I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old boy, both boys. And the business is, one's a consulting firm, Canadian Equality Consulting. We do a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion work for organizations or any type of workplace. And then I had a brief stint co-founding a feminist political apparel company, Madam Premier, and then sold it, my share. And more recently, took one of our service offerings in our consulting company and made it its own company as a spin-off one. And I'm trying to build that one out more.
I
Yeah.
feel like, Marcie, I joke with you that you're always busy, but I feel like you do it with such seamlessness. Like I feel like it's like even today we were talking before this call or before this podcast. I'm like, what are we doing now? This podcast, we were having a call and you're like, okay, I've, stood up this other business and, it hasn't been that long since we've last connected. And I'm always impressed by your really just your entrepreneurial spirit and like this like whole like, oh, I had two boys during this whole like era of my life adding on top. It's like you make it look easy, but I know it's not.
Oh, well, thank you. It's very, very kind. I'm trying to broaden my vocabulary too. So when people say, how are you doing? I don't just say busy. It's like, but I feel busy all the time. But no.
So, I mean,
Prioritization.
what is life like? Like, I feel like it's like expand your vocabulary, but like
Yeah.
expand on busy. Like, what does life look like for you as a mom and as this multiple business owner?
Yeah. So I'm trying not to use that word, but it definitely it definitely looked a bit chaotic
Yeah.
in a sense that, and it's always changing and evolving based on kids' needs at any given time and business needs at any given time. So it's kind of juggling in a way and thinking about, okay, in this period of time, my kids need more of a focus, or this is a particular really busy time for my company. So Craig, my partner, my husband, it's his turn to lead parent. And it's always been kind of fluctuating. So sometimes for a long time, I was always the lead parent in their, initial stages of life. And then probably the first few years of my business, Craig became the lead parent. And just now I feel like it's starting to even out again. Like it's starting to even out a little bit more. But there definitely is, it definitely fluctuates a lot depending on the stage of growth that I'm at in the company and what the kids, what they need at any given time. And there's a lot of guilt around not being the lead parent as a mom and as a woman and having Craig step in. But I just try to remind myself of the times that I have put a ton of work in, like the first few years of their life, right? I took full year mat leaves, well, for the first one, and like was basically the person with them 24/7 for the first couple of years. And this, so, it all evens out in the end. And as long as I'm still spending quality focus time with both kids, at least once a day, then and maintain that really strong connection.
Yeah.
that's all that really matters. It's not necessarily about the hours you put
Yeah.
in.
I like this like concept of lead parent. I have admittedly never thought about it that way, but like you're right. There are times in life when one parent needs to step up or, has the ability
Yeah.
to or the opportunity to step up a little bit more. Was that like a very like active conversation with you and Craig? Like you are the lead now, or is it just something that like evolved? Like how did you is this maybe a word I've never heard of that's a common word?
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think I think it just evolved kind of like
Yeah.
organically or naturally, but like we never I don't know if we had a specific conversation because I had my first child before I had my business when I did have more time flexibility. I was working in government and it was like it wasn't a conversation because it was expected that I would be the lead parent as the one birthing the child and then taking the most of the leave, right? So it was kind of put on me and I wanted it, so it was fine. And then there definitely was more tension when it was like, okay, now we have to reverse this because I'm busier. I have to get a ton, there's that word again, I have to get a ton of stuff done. And we need to like recalibrate a little bit and adjust the balances of parenting. And but Craig kind of stepped right into it. But now, yeah, I don't know where the word came from, but now we talk about it all the time. We're like, okay, I'm lead parent now, or
I
I
like
need
that.
you to do it this month or
Yeah.
whatnot. And as an example, like we were talking about this earlier, but I only see my kids on weekends for the whole month of January and for March because I'm in Edmonton in an accelerator program for my business. So this is something that before when I got accepted, I initially was terrified and was like, "There's no way this is going to work." Like I had a small amount of joy, and then it was immediately followed by, "Oh my God, how are we going to do this?" But it's gotten easier to have that conversation, and now it's to the point where I'm very thankful. I have a very supportive partner. When I shared that I got accepted, it was, without hesitation, just like, yeah, we'll make it work. Not a big deal. And in like 1 month or 2 months, cumulatively is like quicker than a blink of an eye in a lifetime. So it's like, won't even remember it probably
Yeah.
15 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the mom guilt side, I don't know how it got programmed into us, but I mean, even the simplest things like for us, it's like the kids have soccer 3 times a week now. That's a lot. Like that's a lot of soccer. That's a
Yeah.
lot of time. So Wednesdays, I typically try to be at all of them. Wednesdays now I've said to Peter, like, you're coaching
Wow.
anyways. You are there. Like, I'm gonna go to spin or like I'm gonna go work out. And even this morning,
Mhm.
because like
Nice.
we're recording on a Wednesday, but even this morning I was like, oh, I should go. Like it's okay. Like I don't need to. And then it's like, well, no, like I'm gonna start saying this lead parent. It's like I'm the lead parent every morning. Peter's out
Yeah.
doing his exercise and training for his next fight. And it's like, I'm on, I'm making lunches, I'm waking them up, I'm getting people dressed, I'm getting people. It's like, okay, no, they can have an hour
Yeah.
with dad after school. And to your point, like a month,
Mhm.
an hour, it's like
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, that is not
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah. And you don't, and I found that I'm not like losing that strong connection with the kids being away this much either, which is interesting because there was I can't remember it now, but there's this study, I don't know, not that long ago. I'll send you the link if I can find it, but it was like parents spend more quality time with their kids now than they did in like the 1950s or the 1940s, but it was like a one parent household or there was always one parent there with them. It's like the amount of hours doesn't matter, it's more so the quality.
Right.
And doing the morning routine, that's hard. That's a huge lift.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's true. And yeah, no, I feel like I've seen that study too, where it's like
Yeah.
this kind of this whatever era of parents we're in are like creating that, like you said, quality time, but we're like doing, we're like actively involved as opposed to kind of the passive, go play outside and I'll watch through the kitchen
Yeah.
window. It's like we're playing outside too.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel
That
like
makes sense.
there's so many factors on, I feel like you and I feel like have a similar partnership with our husbands in terms of, okay, sharing load, sharing work, but there's always something external at play. I feel like, the struggle is always real. How do you guys deal with that? The curveballs. What are some curveballs that you have to deal with? I mean, even this course,
Mhm.
here's a curveball. You're going to be in Edmonton for 2 months this
Mhm.
year, so you guys dealt with that. But what are some of those other kind of systems really that are at play in terms of being a mom and working these days?
Mhm. Yeah, and there's what what I'm realizing too is that there's only so much that like my partner and I can control for to try to mitigate any barriers that we experience, let's say. But there's always these kind of broader systems at play, and you and I could probably talk forever about biases and like double standards that women or like working mothers or working parents um, experience in day to day life and in the workplace. Like it's everywhere. And there's certain things, like as an example, I remember when my kids first started to going to school, right? Like the school only phones the mom when they're sick, or only phones, or like they didn't even try to call the second number, or even for play dates, only the all goes to you. And it can be really overwhelming. But there's certain things like that that are kind of within my control where I can be like, okay, Craig, I'm adding you to the group chat. I know you don't want it, but I'm adding you. Or like calling the school being like, no, list him as the primary phone number because literally I'll never be able to answer it. Like I'm in meetings constantly and he has more flexibility.
Yeah.
So there's certain things like that. And but the guilt is hard to like part ways with in a way because of these broader systems are always kind of like sending you messages or reinforcing, or there's different gendered expectations that are on you as a working mother that you need to be doing certain things in order to be successful. And I'm an Enneagram 3, and I know you're really well versed in the Enneagram, so you probably know exactly what that means, but basically means like I get my self-worth and value from what I do and
Right.
like what I produce. So if I like from other people, external validation in a way. So if I if I'm missing things at work or whatever, like it's crushing.
Yeah.
Or if my kids are like, "Why did you miss this play?" Like it compounds it even more.
Yeah.
And I'm always struggling with like wanting to do more. Like that volume is I don't know how I motivate myself in a way.
Yeah.
But it's also this as a mom, I experience it, and I'm sure you experience it. And as a business owner, we probably both experience it. But that whole like the rushing, the hustle culture, the grinding, grow fast, scale your business, like put in all the hours, little sleep, all of that. As an Enneagram 3 motivates me, but as like a mom, it's still harmful because that sort of fast-paced like get it done culture that is still often rewarded in our society and in our workplaces is very linked to like hyper capitalism and patriarchy, right? In
Right.
the sense that those are male values, that's what's valued, and it's typically from like back in the day when in a heterosexual relationship it was a one income household with the let's say the dad or like the male working could work long hours because he was treated like a baby at home and everything was taken care of, right? So it's like that still exists, those pressures to do that.
Um,
And as a woman we're expected to also conform to that, but at the same time be a super present lead parent and mother, right? So it's something that anyway I've always struggled with it, and and trying to balance that need of wanting to do more and grow and motivate myself, but also be aware of like healthy limitations.
yeah. Yeah. I think it's so true. I laughed at the group chat thing because we have a group chat too, all the like
Yeah.
parents at school, and Peter is in there. And yesterday there's this big controversy at school. They've gotten rid of microwaves. gotten rid of
Oh
the
no.
microwaves at school. There was an incident. I didn't ask what the incident was anyways. So there's this rush now of like, how do we send warm food? Like, okay, a thermos and who's got the best thermos and what's the techniques and whatever. I don't have time for that. Like, I barely have time to text you back when
Yeah, I
when
know.
you text me,
Me
right?
too, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Right? And it's like, I don't have, and you look at your phone, you're similar to you, like in meetings all day, I go look at my phone and there's like 35 missed WhatsApp messages from this group of women who, and
Yeah.
it's no problem. Like, I'm glad that we're having this open conversation, but there's this expectation of like, okay, well, what's Bartek and Jacob's parents think about this piece? So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, Peter, who is our, I'm going to call lead chef in the family, that is like the
Yeah.
domestic duty he has taken on, drops these like, nuggets of, well, cook the pasta to al dente and do this and put it in and preheat your thermos with the boiling water and
Oh, wow.
just all of this stuff in there. And and I felt like texting back at the end, and for more cooking tips, please follow Peter at But he right? And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
all these people in the groups that are like, "Wow, thanks so much for this nugget of wisdom." But there are these, to your point, these systems and these pressures where it's like, I for sure, if Peter had not chimed in, would have felt like I need to add to this conversation and show the parents I'm also cooking healthy meals,
Yeah.
thinking about this. And it's true. I think that even when you have conversations with, my grandma, who I think is fairly progressive at the end of the day, but has no idea how, I own a business and also can take care of my husband and take care of my children,
Oh, yeah.
and to tell her, well, grandma, like, I don't cook supper every night. Like, that's Peter's job. It's like horrific, right? Like, what? You make your husband cook when
Yeah.
he gets home from work? And it's like, yeah, but like, I do all the laundry. So,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. And there still is like, and there's so much value in those tasks.
yeah,
And yeah, it's interesting because those are all still important. It's just, yeah, critical. And I love it how you guys share that load and how, and again, you're still kind of butting up against a society and old norms, like from your grandma, right? But even from broader society that doesn't see value in those activities.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. How do you face, and I feel like we haven't had this conversation, but I do, especially as the kids get older, there's this, the mad rush to be the volunteer in the classroom, or
Mm,
there's the mad, right? And I feel like there's the individuals that always are there, and oh, well, so and so's parents were at this, and like, how do you navigate? How do you have those conversations? Because
yeah.
feel like we're in the same boat, right? I can't do everything.
Yeah.
Even though I work from a home office doesn't mean that I'm, putting my feet up all day, unfortunately.
What do you mean, Christina? You don't want to do soapstone carving every year?
Yeah, put me right in
Yeah,
the line.
little volunteering activities. I Yeah, it's tricky because your kid sees value in that and
Yeah,
wants you to be there too. And that's something that I have tried to like, well, as often when I'm there to
yeah,
prioritize to try to do that so I can be there and it's quality time because you can't be working while you're in the classroom or it's frowned upon. But yeah, but it can be really fun. But it's tricky because a lot of like initially at our school, like a lot of those emails for volunteering, like or when I have gone, not when dad is there, which
right.
is interesting. Like it's the mom or then it's the grandma. So
Yeah,
it's like, this is just an interesting observation. So I'm always trying to like encourage Craig to go do it too. But
yeah,
yeah, but it's yeah, it's difficult to navigate sometimes with the expectations that you're going to do it and your kid sees value in it and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's a wild world that we live in.
Yeah. Yeah.
what advice would you give, whether it's your pre-mom self or to a mom who's, you know, new and trying to balance work or is, coming to that stage of her life? What would you share?
I think that what I would share is that it's never going to be equally balanced. Like it'll never be perfect. I had a former CEO say to me, and at the time I thought it was harsh, but now I totally get it. But she said, "There's no such thing as work life balance. It's never going to happen." And it's just about decisions that you make or work life integration, but with separate periods of rest. And there's always going to be busier seasons and less busy times, and that hopefully your partner or that you have help in some way, because I think that's absolutely kind of required if to help support you to get both kind of career fulfillment and be able to have quality time with kids, but just to kind of take it as you go and figure it out with your team, also with your workplace, which brings me kind of back to that school volunteering. Is that's something that I had to establish expectations around early, is like sometimes I'm going to miss that pitch call, or I'm going to miss that
Right.
email because I'm prioritizing this instead. And they're all okay with it. So just kind of normalizing that helps. But overall, there's like no, I feel like, secret solution
Yeah.
or way to do this perfectly. And there's no way to really avoid this, still patriarchal society we live and operate in, and all the biases and expectations that come with that. But I will say though, there are a lot of amazing things too, as as a mom and as a business owner, and and I'm sure you have tons of stories of this, but having your kids like grow up with you and like in the business and seeing how hard you work, seeing your struggles and like learning it alongside you. I remember one time I was tucking my eldest in, he was maybe 7 at the time, and we were just chatting, and he was asking me questions about, at that time, Madame Premier, because he really thought it was cool. And then he modeled for it and everything. He was really, really excited about it. And then he said, and he asked, "Mom, can boys be business owners too?" Because all he ever saw was women,
Yeah.
and like from me and the women in my circle. And I was just like, wow, like, oh, like, of course they can. But like,
Yeah.
little do you know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's beautiful, like the power that comes from even just like representation alone. Seeing that is so powerful. And then I recently took Hudson, my little one, to like a nuclear industry conference where we we they love trips. But anyway, I took him along and I had to give like a speech, and then I had to like sit at a booth for like 2 days and like demo our product or this thing we launched there. And and he just thrived. Like he didn't miss his friends. He was sitting at the booth with his like little iPad, doing some games and like talking to people. By the end of it, he was pitching CEC better than I could.
Oh boy.
And then when I was giving my speech on the stage, he was sitting down at like a table with the other conference delegates. Like this like little mini guy with all these adults at the
Yeah.
conference. And I was giving my speech and I was looking at him, and he was just smiling and giving me a thumbs up. And it was just like the sweetest, like most validating thing ever. And there's something just like so incredibly special about that when you build something and the impact it has, on even the unintentional impact that you don't even see that's
Yeah.
there. And it's just beautiful.
Oh, I love that. I think that, to your point, I do think we're paving the way. Like we really are, right? Like I think breaking down those barriers and showing the next generation what it is, cuz women in business aside, like business is drastically changing. Like I often think about, what does a work day look like for these guys in 20 years, like it isn't going to be, oh, go
Yeah.
down to the office and those things. So, even that part of taking them on work trips and, you know, I love that. I feel like I have similar stories, but I love the fact that, they get to see us on a stage and being a boss and right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, but you know what you're talking about, and these people think you're pretty good, so good job. Like, I think that's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and then over time, the cumulative impact of raising these we both have boys, so,
Yeah,
like, raising these boys, right, to it's the norm for dad to cook,
totally.
like, I'm not gonna put that expectation in the future, or, like, it's the norm for mom or women to be on stage and leading business conversations, and yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yes, look at us. Paving the way of the next generation. Uh,
Yeah.
no, I love this chat, Marcy. I feel like I really love this concept that I'm calling it your concept now of the lead parent. I feel like we're
Yeah.
establishing it, copyright it, but I think it's so important. And I love the advice, right? There's never going to be perfection or balance. So wipe that if you're a mom to be out of your whole vernacular because life is going to change and it's similar to marriage, right? Like when you enter in
Yeah.
a commitment with someone in a committed relationship, there's times when sacrifices need to be made and kids get to amplify
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and their little minds and, like, time goes by so fast,
Yeah.
right? So it's what you feel like might be damaging or have, like, a big impact, it's nothing. Yeah.
It's true. There's no mommy issues. They'll just be blinks.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well,
Yeah.
Marcy, thank you. I feel
Oh,
like this will be one of many conversations. I'm sure you will be back, but I appreciate your time today and I'm looking forward to hanging out soon once you're back in Calgary.
yeah, sounds awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Of
It was
course.
really fun.
Thanks for joining me, Christina Pilarski, for another fantastic episode of Two Babies in a Business. I hope that you'll follow along with me on my journey as a mom on Instagram, Two Babies in a Business. And I hope that you'll sign up for our newsletter. You can find the link in the show notes or on my Instagram. And finally, if you're a mom with a story to share, I want to hear from you. Please reach out to me, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you.